listen-only mode.
Hello, my name is Kate Conkle, and I am a community coach with the County Health Rankings and Roadmaps program. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Karen Odegaard.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I will be helping to answer your questions as well as sending out some links via the chat box throughout the webinar today.
We are also excited to have Sondra Samuels with us today, who will talk with us about the importance of valuing all voices in the community, especially those that are most vulnerable. Sandra,
Hi,
welcome.
Thank you. Hi, it's nice to be here.
So first, we'd like to acknowledge the important relationship that we have with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The County Health Rankings and Roadmaps program is a collaboration between the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the University of Wisconsin Population Health Institute. And next, we want to take a moment to get you oriented to the technology that we're using today. The GoToWebinar attendee interface is made up of two parts. On the left, you can see the viewer window where you will see our screen throughout the presentation. And on the right, you can see the control panel where you can interact with us. So please feel free to ask questions and share your thoughts and experiences with us via the control panel throughout the webinar today. And we will be sure to leave some time for your questions towards the end. So we like to start with a guiding question, and this question is what will guide our webinar today. And that question is, how can we engage vulnerable populations to build a culture of health in our community? So to start, we actually want to get some feedback from you, and we want to get a sense of how you are currently approaching work with vulnerable populations. So we're going to take two quick Okay, sorry, I had a brief audio issue there, but I think I'm back. So our first poll is, are you implementing strategies that will create opportunities for all members of the community, including those that are most vulnerable?
We call these our rapid response polls, so we'll just take a few moments here to gather your input, your thoughts on how and whether you're implementing strategies that will create opportunities for all members of the community to make healthy choices. And we'll just give you a little bit more time here for this, and we'll take a look at your responses. All right. So we've got most of you having voted, and I'm going to close this and share the results so that you can see.
All right, so looks like most of you are doing this in some capacity, and many of you really looking to do this a little bit more or improve your work in this area. So not surprising, and glad to see that many of you are already on this journey. So we're going to ask a second poll now to build on that, and really thinking about the idea that since many of you are already doing this kind of work, thinking about that in some cases people are doing, when they're working with vulnerable populations, they're doing work for and not necessarily with, and this can be a real challenge. So reflecting on your own community, are you really working with vulnerable populations to develop and implement strategies? So again, thinking about, we're going to launch this poll now. Are you doing work mostly for, starting to do work with, or working with those vulnerable populations? Again, lots of you responding. Give you just a few more seconds here. All right, so we will close our poll and share those results with you again. So again, lots of you doing mostly for about a third. And many of you, again, about the same number, are starting to do work with. So really, again, on that journey, making that transition to do work with. And then some really primarily working with those communities. So for those of you especially that are in that last category, we'd love it if you'd share some ideas in that chat or question box of what you're doing to work with those vulnerable populations in your community.
And I wanted to just chime in and note that it looks like we're having a little bit of weirdness with how our screens are showing, so I apologize for that on the poll questions. But we thank you very much for participating in those polls and for giving us a sense of where you're at with this kind of work. As Kate mentioned, we'd love to hear from you. What have you tried to engage vulnerable populations in your community, and what's been successful, especially for those of you, there's that percentage of you who indicated that you are indeed working with vulnerable populations to create solutions. Those of you who have started to do this work, we'd love to hear your experiences. So please share those as we go out throughout today's webinar.
All right, great. Thanks again. So as we move into the content of the webinar, we would like you to consider these questions. So who else do you need to share this information with? Who else in your community and your partnership do you think would benefit from hearing about today's webinar and the information you'll hear? What's one idea for action that you're taking away from this webinar? And finally, what else do you need to know to take action and use this information? And again, we'll have time for your questions at the end. So we're going to start with a brief program overview to ground our discussion in the county health rankings and roadmaps, and this will take about 5 minutes. If you are newer to us, this will give you a high-level overview of the county health rankings and roadmaps. And to learn more, we strongly encourage you to check out one of our Rankings and Roadmaps 101 webinars. Karen's going to chat out the link for that right now. We also have a Rankings and Roadmaps 101 webinar coming up on January 6th that you can register for. So the County Health Rankings ranks the health of nearly every county in every state. And for each county, you will find two rankings, one for health outcomes and one for health factors. This image shows the relationship between policy, health factors, and health outcomes. It illustrates why it's important for communities to take a broad definition of health. Many factors impact how well and how long we live. Things like how we commute to work, housing conditions, access to parks, the quality of our schools, access to healthy foods, community safety, our social connectedness, all of these things impact our health outcomes. So what does this image tell us? Starting from the bottom, we know that effective local, state, and federal policies and programs can improve a variety of factors that in turn shape the health of communities. And there are many health factors that shape our community's health outcomes. We specifically look at health behaviors, clinical care, social and economic factors, and the physical environment. And we measure two types of health outcomes. We show how healthy each county is. To show how healthy each county is, we look at length of life and quality of life. Today, you will hear Sandra talk about how the work of the Northside Achievement Zone and its partners takes a very holistic approach to families. And that while they're focusing on closing the education achievement gap, they focus across many of the factor areas to do that. Things like housing, employment, family and community safety, access to health care. So while all of these are separate factors in the model, we know that there are a lot of relationships between many of the factors. And so often to really have an impact in one area, you might find it necessary to work across many. We also know that this is challenging work, and we know that communities sometimes want or need support to figure out first steps or next steps. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the Roadmaps to Health Action Center. So this is the Take Action cycle, and the Take Action cycle is the how within rankings and roadmaps. It lays out the process for communities to follow to improve health. We start with gathering information to assess needs and resources. Then we set priorities so that you can focus on what's important. Find the most effective approaches to address your priorities, and then get to work on acting on what's important. And of course, evaluating the cycle will help you improve your strategies and ensure that what you're doing is effective. You'll see that communicate sits in the center of the cycle because communication with stakeholders is essential throughout the Take Action cycle. But at the heart of the Take Action cycle is people working together, because we know that solving issues like childhood obesity, poor high school graduation rates, or crime require the wisdom and resources of everyone in the community. The Roadmaps to Health Action Center, part of our website, includes guidance and tools to help communities keep moving along this cycle. So Karen's going to be sharing links throughout the webinar to some relevant tools in these guides during today's webinar, and they'll also be posted online later this week. Today's webinar, though, focuses at the center of the Take Action cycle, that light blue circle, the community members. And how do you authentically engage your community? How do you value all voices in this process? And how do you truly work with community members, especially the most vulnerable among us? So now let's turn to another piece of the County Health Rankings and Roadmaps. In the Action Center, we guide people to the Take Action cycle and point them towards tools and guidance on our website to assist them in their community health improvement efforts. But we also know that many communities are already well along the way in this journey, and we want to identify, celebrate, and feature these communities. So the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Prize was created. The RWJF Culture of Health Prize celebrates what communities have done as well as how they've done it. And here you'll see the 6 criteria that are central to the prize. The prize recognizes communities annually who work across health factors by defining health broadly, are strategically focused on policy systems and environmental change, and who look out for all, including those most vulnerable in their community. These communities work collaboratively with partners from across sectors, use resources wisely and creatively, and they measure and share success widely. You can learn more about our 2013 and 2014 prize winners on our site, and again there will be a link to that in a moment. So I am pleased to note that our guest today, Sandra, is representing an inaugural 2013 prize-winning community, Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you haven't watched the inspirational video about their efforts, I encourage you to take 4 minutes after our webinar today to check it out. Again, Karen's going to chat out that link. And while they encompass all of those 6 guideposts that we just mentioned, we are really, again, focusing today on their work with the community and really working to make the community a full partner. So now let's introduce our guest and hear more about their work. So as the President and CEO of the Northside Achievement Zone, or NAZ, Sondra Samuels is leading a revolutionary culture shift in North Minneapolis focused on ending multi-generational poverty through education. Working in a collaboration of more than 35 partner nonprofits and schools, NAZ is working toward a single goal: to prepare 2,500 low-income North Minneapolis children to graduate from high school ready for college. NAZ is scaling up to support 1,000 parents as they turn the social service model on its head and lead the creation of a college-bound culture in their homes and community. Ms. Samuels is a national leader and tireless education reformer who advocates for evidence-based cradle-to-career solutions to the issues of concentrated poverty that plague low-income communities and leave far too many children of color in the center of an egregious achievement gap. Under her leadership, NAZ was named a Federal Promise Neighborhood and has become a nationally recognized model for comprehensive community development and systems change. So again, welcome, Sandra.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here today. And if you can just start out by sharing a little bit about Minneapolis and the Northside neighborhood and your work with the Northside Achievement Zone.
Yes, absolutely. We'd love to do it. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. What an honor. I love talking about the work that we're doing, and particularly around family engagement. So Minneapolis, the land of 10,000 lakes, it's an incredible city. We have about 400,000 residents. An incredible quality of life. I mean, it's just so rich, and so many. We have a number of Fortune 500 organizations as well, and 100 that located here because of our educated workforce. And yet, while this is a great city, it is the tale of 2 cities. Because where I sit is in northwest Minneapolis, or we call our neighborhood North Minneapolis. And here there's about 45,000 or some odd residents. And while the North Side is an amazing place with rich history and tradition, it's also a really diverse community, largely African American, and then Hmong, white, Latino, a burgeoning Latino community. But it's also ground zero for all of the disparities in Minneapolis. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons that we're focused on North Minneapolis, again, ground zero. We believe that the economic viability of our region and of our city, really a determining factor will be the quality of life and the health of this community. And what I have here is an example of one of our, we call all of our children who are in the Northside Achievement Zone scholars, because we really want to get at the belief gap. So Jaquan is one of our scholars, and I just put up a little composite of some of the odds that Jaquan faces, especially as an African-American young man. Only a 43% of African-Americans graduate from high school within 4 years. That number significantly goes down for boys. We have a 25% homeless or highly mobile rate, meaning from September to June, it's measured on a school year. At least 25% of the kids are no longer in the school. And in one school over north, it's actually a 50% mobility rate. Only 16% ready for college, 13% graduate on time. Our average household income is about $18,000 and a 63% unemployment rate. In fact, the Met Council here, which is one of our kind of civic-minded bodies that looks at transportation and things of that nature, did research and found that Minneapolis has 38 racially concentrated areas of poverty. And these are places of great disparity that are really kind of a drag on the rest of the city. And while there's 38 over the city, 20 of those are located in North Minneapolis, racially concentrated areas. And remember, so that's over 50% of the recaps, which is the acronym for racially concentrated areas of poverty, are here, but we are less than 20% of the entire city. And so, you know, again, with healthy outcomes, the question becomes, when you see the kind of disparate outcomes in terms of health, violence, juvenile adjudication, single-parented households, again, poverty, you start questioning yourself around whether the outcomes are determined by zip code or genetic code. And of course, anybody on this call knows that it's zip code. And that's why we decided to do a place-based strategy, because this is where, again, ground zero, and this place is where the outcomes are the worst. So this is the place where we are really focused on changing the trajectory of the community. And so a couple years ago, given all of this, our community came together and we heard about 50 organizations: housing, out of school time, health, education, K through 12 colleges, so on, career organizations, about 50 leaders of nonprofits. And we heard about the Harlem Children's Zone and their incredible outcomes there, again, a place-based strategy to end poverty using education as a lever, which is our ultimate goal. And the question got asked, in light of the previous stats that I just shared with you, could we do a place-based strategy here, and did we want to? And you know, we did the kind of, well, thinking about our outcomes so far across all of our organizations, and like Dr. Phil would say, how's that working for you? And we had to all say, you know, it's really not. And so it was at that point that we made a decision to experiment, because it hadn't been done here, with trying to get breakthrough results by actually coming together and collaborating across all of our organizations. And so once we agreed to do that, we became a collaboration of public and private entities, a multi-sector cross-agency, and extremely data-driven. Everything, we are absolutely devotees to results-based accountability. And so once we came together, we really took up the theory of aligned contribution. So we chose a North Star, and again, ours became ending multi-generational poverty using education as a lever, creating a culture of achievement in a geographic zone of North Minneapolis where all children graduated high school, college ready, and then ultimately graduating from some form of post-secondary. And to do that, we would align ourselves in real alignment. You know, just because you play together doesn't make you a team. And so we've been playing in the same sandbox, but we had not been a team across organizations. And so we decided 5 years ago to begin aligning our resources, our talents, our time, our staff, our data tracking systems, our accountability systems, our strategy, and you name it, so that we would have a collective impact approach, and really viewing families and children as whole beings that don't come in pieces. And so we decided to put together this ecosystem of 30 anchor partners and 9 anchor schools that would become, in fact, we call ourselves E Pluribus Unum, out of many, one system of support and partnership for families. And, you know, ultimately, you know, I'm kind of going backwards to come forwards, or at the end to lead you to the up to the end, is that ultimately what our value proposition is for families is that we want to create a team around all of our children and all of our families as well. But this is an example. This is a real life scholar, real scholar, and the team that we have surrounding them. As I continue through the PowerPoint, you'll really get a sense. But we don't believe we have a child problem. We believe we have an adult problem, that we haven't played in the sandbox well and really created a safety net, and one that doesn't have holes for our most imperiled children, that we actually call, instead of at risk, we call them high return. Because when we get it right by these children, the economic prospect of that is enormous, as well as life potential. So Jaquan, he was in one of our schools, and Sojourner Truth, as you can see down on the right, and was about to get kicked out, sorry, not of school, but of his after-school program, PCYC. And we share a data system across partners, and this partner at a school-time program contacted the NAZ connector that's up on the left, the northwest corner, and I'm going to tell you about that. That's a family coach. And the connector works closely with mom and the family, and we said, please don't kick Jaquan out. The reason we're a Promise Neighborhood is that those are the exact kids we want in your program, and let's figure out what we need to do to support Jaquan and the family. Then we talked to the academic navigator who works for us, who's located in his school, Sojourner Truth, who said yes, he was exhibiting some of the same behavioral issues there. And then we brought in one of our behavioral health navigators who works with us to really talk to Jaquan and the family. And then she determined that one of our behavioral health partners at North Point could really assess Jaquan in the way he needed to be assessed. And so North Point counselor came in, and we were also talking to Jaquan's big brother through Big Brothers Big Sisters to make sure he knew what was happening and could, in his relationship, really be in sync with us as we were working with Jaquan. And the North Point came up with a plan that mom and everybody agreed to, and it really addressed some of the trauma that Jaquan had experienced and was reacting to. And while I can tell you Jaquan has not become a straight A student overnight, he did tell his academic navigator that he loves learning. He's just realizing he loves learning. And so with our collaborative partners, again, creating this team so that our young boys, especially our boys of color, African American and Latino, don't have to join the teams that proliferate our streets, which are known as gangs and cliques. We're telling them, we're your clique. This is your gang right here, and we have your back. The ultimate goal of, again, creating the team is to end multi-generational poverty. And we have a 2-generation approach. So we work with both the parents and the scholars. And our focus is on stronger parenting, stronger parenting, stronger parenting. And then academic and whole family supports, so that the family becomes as solid and nurturing and whole and healthy as they can be, so that the scholars can do the two things that children, the only two things that children should be doing when they're children, and that is learning and having fun. So we want to remove barriers to that happening. And really helping parents to believe that they are not simply perennial recipients of social services, but really leading change. And they can lead change in their home and in their school and on their block and in the broader community. And the ticket to get into our, because this is real, this is a cradle to college approach, and we're busting up the cradle to grave. We got a cradle to grave as well, cradle to prison, and also cradle to caseload, which too many of our girls get in, and those where you can statistically determine how many will go on welfare by the time they are 18. So we're breaking that up. And the ticket to get in our pipeline is that parents and scholars, if they're old enough, commit to college graduation. The secret sauce to this team approach, and you heard me mention it before, and now I'm going to explain it, is really we have a high expectations with high supports. High expectations for not just the parents, but also for all of our partners, multi-sector cross-agency, and ourselves to really deliver the best partnership that we can to families and scholars. And the first thing that happens with the family is that they get a NAZ connector. And NAZ connectors are family coaches that partner with the families, and they connect them to our ecosystem of support across our education pipeline and our whole family support pipeline that I'm going to talk more about in a moment. And this is really about social connectedness. All of our NAZ connectors are from the community. They are largely African American because they represent the demographics proportionally of the community. And then we do have Latino and Hmong connectors as well. They work full-time. As a leader, I'm going to tell you, I believe they're paid well. You'll have to talk to one of them to see if they agree. I think they would. And we hire the attitude and teach the skill. So they go through a lot of training, motivational interviewing, things of that nature, but they really learn how to use their own lives, because many of our, we hire people who we want the people that we hire to be identifiable by the people that they're partnering with in the community. And so they use themselves as a resource and a role model. And they stay with the families no matter where they go in our ecosystem of support. And I'll tell you more about that. But this is really what I believe is the key to the success that we're seeing. And they are not social workers, and we don't use social service language, even though we love social services. Of course, we are considered one, but we deny it. But we don't use client, customer. They are partners. They are full partners in this work. And we don't have a caseload. We have, what's our parent load and things of that nature. So we really try to stay using equitable and not empowering, but powerful language in response to our parents in a relationship to them. A core value in all that we do is that parents are our leaders. And so for us, parent engagement is everything. It's not a strategy. It's not something we do. It's who we are. And we treat our parents that way. When they walk in this door, so many of our parents themselves have been traumatized as children and young people and even young adults in this community. And we want to make sure we're doing what we can, that we don't re-traumatize the adults. And so we treat them with respect. We treat them with the honor they deserve, no matter where they are and on the continuum of from healthiness to dysfunction, which we're all on. And we, again, really let them know that they have a partner in all of this. Since we've started over 5 years ago, we've actually hired 9 of our parents to work full-time with us as connectors. So, you can't connect more than that. So it's 9 of our 24 are parents. And by the way, each connector has a parent portfolio possible of 40 families, just so you know. We also have a parent advisory board, and that board guides our board of directors. We have a strategic leadership team made up of all of our partners that are doing work on the ground to create this opportunity network. They advise us We have focus groups all the time, and they're testifying at the Capitol. They're helping us create community celebrations, you know, you name it. And we have 12 parents right now on the board. And our parents move through levels of engagement, from those who first get recruited by us and get in our pipeline, because the first thing a connector does with a family is create an achievement plan. And that achievement plan is what drives them to our opportunity network of partners. And so a parent might come in and be engaged or not. Some parents come and enroll, but then we don't see them again. So we're door knocking, we're leaving notes on cars, we're showing up at the school if we know where the school is. You know, we're doing whatever it takes to engage them and have them really get enrolled fully in our process. And then parents usually move to an engaged level where they are working their achievement plan around housing or early childhood, whatever that plan might be. They're working it, and we start seeing that their children academically are doing better. That's a fully engaged parent. And then we have our leadership level. And again, those are the parents who are taking charge of their homes. They're taking leadership on their blocks, in their schools, and on a city and statewide level by, you know, going to the Capitol and meeting with elected officials. Something that I'm really excited about, that I talk about all the time, the part of our two-generation approach in terms of stronger parenting, the way we get there is through our parenting education programs. And our parenting education programs are off the chain wonderful. And our parents will tell you that. The parents who come to our parenting education are not going to, like, our district's early childhood education program. They're just not going. We have built four curricular offerings that are culturally relevant. We stipend families for attending, and I'll talk to you about incentivizing families for the things that we really value, hold up as important in a minute. But so 4 of our offerings are college-bound babies. Those are for parents who have children 0 to 3. They learn all about brain development, positive discipline.
Hey, Sandra, I think we've lost your audio connection for a minute, so those of you on the webinar, if you can bear with us for a moment. Yep, so while Sandra works to get her audio back, sorry, we're just doing some quick troubleshooting here. Looks like she's...
Yeah, I'm back in now.
All right.
Hello?
Sandra's back. Yep, you're here.
Okay, sorry. Okay, where did I leave off? Did anybody remember, like, my last word?
I think you were around, like, the college-bound scholars.
Okay, so just really quick. So 12 weeks, and brain development, positive discipline, how they get ready for kindergarten, and then ready to succeed are preschool scholars, parents of preschool scholars. That's 12 weeks. College-bound scholars, we are starting next year at the first quarter, and that's school age for parents of school-age children. And our NAZ Foundations is incredible. That's a parenting empowerment 8-week program, and that's all about emotional intelligence and helping parents to get out of their own way in terms of their own life success and a success at really growing a college-bound scholar. And so, you know, this diagram really depicts our theory of action, and it's really engaging parents and scholars as leaders within the community, parents particularly, and providing them a partnership that they can't refuse, that really undergirds the health of their family. A college-bound trajectory and cradle to college, and everything that's here is about real community transformation. So we are into comprehensive community development, The only thing missing here are buildings, like kind of the bricks and mortars and businesses and so on. But we believe that when we get our human capital healthy and strong, that they will in fact attract, their income will raise, and some of the businesses and the developers that have not been attracted to North Minneapolis, we are totally underdeveloped, that they will be attracted to us. So it's all about community transformation. But everything that I just explained, the family, stronger parenting, the thing that I did not talk about is that we use a centralized data system, and we call it NAZ Connect, and all of our partners from early childhood to housing, these are all action teams, by the way, made up of a number of nonprofit organizations. So we have early childhood partners, K through 12, 9 schools we're working with, public district, public charter, parochial, and contract alternative. Colleges have an action team called College Success Team. Then we have a career financial pathways action team, a health action team that has largely been focused on behavioral health, but we're moving into health next year, and then a housing action team. And all of these action teams meet regularly about the same families and the same scholars. And it's through our data system when a family creates an achievement plan with their connector is what sends them to our partner organizations. And our partners also use the data system. It's both an achievement planning tool and a data tracking and reporting tool. And so we can ping a family who's going over to a housing partner to get housing, and then our housing partner would get their information. All of the information is open to our partners if our families say that it's okay. So they do a release that we can share their information. And about 70% of our partners are using the data tracking system. And then we also have NAZ connectors who work for us, but they are located at our partner sites. And this is what gets into the e pluribus unum, where our partners really feel like they have one system of support. So we have early childhood navigators, academic navigators are located in the schools, and they are scholar coaches. So they work diligently to make sure our scholars are at grade level and on a college trajectory. And then we have career navigators, behavioral health navigators, and housing navigators. And so they provide the expertise that our families need, because we don't want our connectors to feel like they have to be jack of all trades. We want them to be able to be experts in our families and then get them to the experts who work with our partners around their needs in terms of the partner organizations. And we are considered the backbone organization, and our partners are, along with us and along with our parents. And so when I say partners, I'm including parents in there too, by the way, that make up this whole collective impact approach. And we've become a learning laboratory. It's been, I think any partner of ours would say it's been amazing.
Thanks, Sandra. Every time I hear your story, I'm just so impressed by the work that you're doing and the sort of the shift that you've made to do this work in North Minneapolis. So I want to pause here for a moment to just take a few minutes to maybe unpeel some more layers, and there's so much rich information here. So you've talked a lot about your partnerships and this collective impact model and framework that you're using. So how have your partners changed the way that they do their work based on their partnership with you, given your deep partnership with the families in the community?
Right, absolutely. And it's theirs too. That's the whole thing. It's like we're sharing the same families and same scholars, which is an amazing thing. But there's two things. One, I live in a zone. I live right in the middle of the zone. I've raised 3 girls here, still raising 2 of them, and a husband, a dog, a guinea pig, a cat. The guinea pigs died. But anyway, so we've been living right here in the heart of the zone. And I know one of the things that I have always thought of myself as doing as I've led the organization before we became Northside Achievement Zone, and it was that I wanted to help, and I wanted to serve. And there is nothing inherently wrong with that. I mean, it is really noble, but sometimes the shadow side of that is that we want to help and serve people who are victims, and that's my truth anyway. And so it can become a maternalistic and paternalistic kind of relationship, and one of, again, client and provider, savior and the one needing to be served, as opposed to this equal that we all care about the outcomes of the community. Unless parents are leading it, it doesn't get done. And so again, the way we see families, and that's why even before all of us saw parents as leaders, we said that all parents were leaders. So we said we're going to say it and let our belief catch up to that, right? And then the other part of that is that we are all using results-based accountability and leadership, which means that we track everything. I mean, it's like we are tracking data because we want to learn, and we want to embrace failure. We want to learn as much around what doesn't work in terms of the well-being of families and scholars as what does work, right? It gets us closer to where we're trying to go in terms of community transformation. So our partners, I think, would tell you, I think most of them, I mean, I don't want to act like it's perfect. It's not perfect, okay? But daggone, we're learning a lot. But anyway, I think most of our partners would say that they have shifted from a focus on outcomes for their programs and their organizations to outcomes for families and children. That, in fact, when that happens, and when we measure how much have we done, how well have we done it, and is anybody better off, that in fact is what drives outcomes for organizations. And we've had it flipped, and now we're flipping the switch on that. Are two of the ways that I think we've really changing and really providing a real partnership.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I think your message is so powerful, and I love it. I love hearing you talk about the way that you talk about your work. And I think that is such an important lesson for people to hear and to think about. And how do we talk about this in a way that is empowering to everyone in our community, and not creating this dynamic of you're here to help, but we're all here to be partners. We've had a couple of questions from folks about funding, and I know we've had some conversations about your funding. Can you just talk us through a little bit about how that has evolved for you? Who has funded this work? How do you pay your NAZ connectors, and how much is external and internal, and just kind of walk us through how that has been set up in your work.
Okay. So when we first started this 5 years ago, we had no funding. So when we heard about Harlem Children's Zone and got excited that they had 900 uneducable, historically thought of as uneducable students away at college, or they were on the path to that, which they have today, and we said if they can do it in Harlem, we can do it here in North Minneapolis. And so when we first decided on, okay, this is the zone, 255 blocks, we're going to do this, we're committed. We're going to have a collective impact movement, doggone it, and collaborate. We didn't have funding at that time, and but a couple of funders who really liked, and in fact, the funders are the ones who introduced us to the Harlem Children's Zone model. A couple of them, two larger ones, and they decided to give our collaborative seed money in order to start planning. So, like the first year or two, we were really planning where would the zone be. What would our focus be? We had a steering committee, and then we had a bunch of committees on everything you can think of. I mean, we did a lot of meetings. And anyway, so we were doing that. So they gave us seed money. So my organization and it came to my organization. So here's the thing. So at first we were all like really working collaboratively. My organization and another one was leading the effort. But then quickly we realized you can't lead a collaborative collaboratively, and so we became the backbone organization, and so seed money came to us to be the backbone of the collaborative movement. And so we went from a $450,000 organization to $1 million organization. We got close to $500,000 from different funders to lead the collaborative. And so we did that for a year or so, and still, our partners so we all had skin in the game. So housing was already starting to work with some of our families, and we weren't paying them to do so. It was coming out of their operating budget, because these are their same families. I mean, it's all the same neighborhood. But anyway, In 2010, we applied for a Promised Neighborhood grant to replicate Harlem Children's Zone. They put 21 grants on the street, planning grants for $750,000 altogether, and thought we were going to win that. We thought we had everything in place and were so devastated when we did not. But failure, again, can be a real catalyzing moment. I didn't know if our partners, okay, just going to have to wait.
Are you there, Sandra? Oh, she's offline. All right, it looks like Sandra has gotten bounced out of the webinar. Sorry about all of our technical difficulties today. Not sure what's going on with that. We'll see if she's able to rejoin, but in the meantime, I think, having talked with her, the message really is they initially didn't have money, but they started doing the work anyway, and they found partners that were able to continue doing that work, and they planned, and they were able to eventually establish funding to ramp up.
Hello?
And that oh, Sandra, are you back?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Hello?
you now. Yep, you're back.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, and so anyway, so then we didn't get that funding. We kept doing the work. We doubled down. We said we made a promise to our children, too. It wasn't dependent on getting that federal grant. And then they put more grants on the street in 2011. And this time they had both planning and implementation. And implementation could be anywhere from 5 to 30 million. And they were only going to select 5 of those. We never thought we'd be selected because we had already been passed over for 21 of the planning grants. But when they selected the first 5, we actually were selected, and we were the only one out of the 5 that had not received a planning grant the year before. And so we were awarded $28 million over 5 years to scale up the work that we had been doing. And so we are finishing year 3, and so we have 2 more years of the grant. And so we are working a sustainability process like you wouldn't believe. We're on steroids with looking at sustainability, because as soon as we got that level of resources, we knew, first of all, our whole budget is not the federal money. So we're both raising private money and we have the federal. It would be too much of our budget is federal, but that's how it was because it was a big win for us. But as soon as we got the money, we knew it was our greatest opportunity, but also our greatest challenge, because it would end. And so we can talk strategy later, but I'm really optimistic about us being able to sustain our work when the grant ends at the end of 2016.
Okay, great, thanks. So Sandra, I'm going to bring us back to, you mentioned that you really are outcomes focused and really collecting a lot of data and information. If you can spend just about 3 minutes walking us through some of the results that you're starting to see as a result of the work that you're doing in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want everybody to know I had so much more measurement data, but Kate and Karen wouldn't let me put it all in here because I was going to bore everybody, I think. But I am proud of our outcomes. So the first slide around enrollment is actually an output, of course. It's not an outcome. But you can see how we've scaled up in terms of family enrollment on the left and we're at 600. We're over 660. We'll end the year at about 800, which is next week, isn't it? At about 800 families, which was our target. And then in terms of scholars, around 1,700, I think. And you see where we were mid-year. And next year, our plan is to have 1,000 families and 2,500 scholars. So we are on track for enrollment. And then in terms of our long-term outcomes, so this I was just putting here to just show that we have a plan for our academic benchmarks as well as our whole family supports. But these are the 4 benchmarks that we're looking at in terms of a baseline, which is on the left, where we started like 3 years ago, and where we want to be in 10 years. So these are 10-year projections of all of the indicators that suggest that a child is on their way to college. So, those are what we measure ourselves against. And some great data recently came in where we're starting to be able to crosswalk our data. to show, so MCAs are our statewide assessment around proficiencies, and what we're starting to see as we crosswalk our data with state data is that families that, the longer a family is enrolled with NAZ, the better their children do academically. So you can see it in reading. The green is 6 months or less, the red is 18 months or more, and in reading it's about, we do 61% better if the longer a family is enrolled, and then in math, 58% better the longer a family is enrolled. And so we're excited that our dosage and our high expectations with high supports is actually bearing fruit in terms of academic performance. And then we have just been like knocking the ball out the park around kindergarten readiness. And we started with the earlier grades in terms of building up our supports. We certainly enroll families who have children all across the spectrum. But again, our earlier supports is what we focused on. And so as you can see, NAZ scholars, close to 50% are ready for kindergarten, as opposed to only 35% who are zone-wide. So we're really excited by that.
All right, thanks so much, Sandra. So we have just a few minutes for questions, and there's a couple coming in, so I'm going to turn this back to Karen to ask the first one.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Christopher, who's asking about the collective impact approach. You've mentioned a couple times that you are using the collective impact approach, and thinking about the 5 components of collective impact. What do those look like for you? And thinking, I think as you've talked, we've clearly heard you talking about a common agenda. The measurement information that you just shared with us, I think, really points to that idea of shared measurement. As you talked about bringing your different partners together, I think we really heard also about the mutually reinforcing activities and how you were bringing those partners into alignment around the families in your zone. And you definitely very clearly said that NAZ serves as the backbone.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what continuous communication looks like, what that element of collective impact looks like for you?
Yeah, so yeah, one of the reasons I'm so excited about today, it wasn't just being on the call, but we actually have 2 things. One, I mentioned the shared data system. You know, for collective impact, that is like, you gotta be able to communicate with each other and track data together and so on. And the model doesn't have to be just like ours, but there has to be some way to do that. And we use NAZ Connect to do that. And again, it's both an achievement planning tool, but it's also a data tracking and reporting and measurement tool as well. And that's how we were able to crosswalk data from the state in terms of academics with our supports and length of time families been in and so on, to really see if we were making a difference with that intervention. Again, how well are we doing, how much are we doing, how well, and is anybody better off? But anyway, so the data tracking is everything, and being able to share that system, and we've been building that out for the last couple of years. And then the other thing is, so the action teams meet regularly. And then the leaders of those action teams make up a strategic leadership team, and we meet every other month. And, you know, again, they provide strategic leadership to the whole collective impact movement, and our parents are inform that group as well. And then we have results-based accountability sessions that we call Results NAZ. And in fact, when I get off the phone here, I'm running to that. So I told you we have all these action teams, right? All the action teams use evidence-based plans that they've all agreed on. So we're not just like spitting in the wind and just hoping it hits somewhere or someone. But we're actually saying, okay, for early childhood, the goal is that every child is kindergarten ready. And we might have a couple of goals there, but we also have a plan that's
All right, Sandra, I think we lost you again. Are you
and
maybe
of
back?
parents. Oh, did we really? Okay. Let's see. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello? Okay, great. So anyway, we have a roundtable of all our stakeholders and partners. Today we're focused on early childhood, and we're going to really unpack the data and all the progress monitoring to really look at, again, how much have we done, how well have we done it, and is anybody better off, and really look at the areas where we need to improve. But so we're always meeting and having effective meetings, by the way, and really talking together in our silos by action area and solutions, but also coming together. And we also have community-wide meetings quarterly as well.
All right, great. Thank you so much. All right, I think we are out of time for questions now, so we're going to wrap things up. And again, thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing your story. I think, again, it's great every time I hear it, and I always find more little nuggets of information that I think are really helpful to think about as we really think about transforming communities. So as we wrap up, I want to let you know that thanks to the support of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, we have 4 community coaches based in Madison, Wisconsin, and we'll soon have 7 regional coaches based around the country, and our assistance is available to you at no cost. So community coaches provide community leaders with direct support to strengthen their capacity to advance health improvement efforts in the communities. We use the County Health Rankings model, the Take Action Cycle, the RWJF Culture of Health Prize criteria as frames for guidance. We use the What Works for Health as a database, which is a database of evidence-related strategies. So lots of different tools that we use as we work with communities. So if you are interested in this opportunity, you will find these orange boxes located throughout the Action Center inviting you to contact us for personalized free help. If you have an immediate need or question, feel free to use, again, that orange Need Help box. Also, in the very near future, look on our homepage for an announcement that will be a specific call for interest in coaching. And that will be towards the bottom, so scroll all the way down to the homepage and you will see again, very soon an announcement for a specific call for coaching. But again, immediate needs, use the orange Need Help box. If you don't need help but you're looking for other ways to stay connected with us, you can use social media to stay in touch and communicate about county health rankings and roadmaps. You can follow us on Twitter, you can like us on Facebook, you can subscribe to our e-newsletter. Again, the program is a result of the many contributions of our many partners, including those listed here. And as we wrap up, I just want to come back to our guiding question that we talked about at the beginning of the webinar. And we hope that this discussion has generated some new ideas and thoughts about how you can engage vulnerable populations to build a culture of health. Thank you all so much for listening. I know this is a busy time of year. We appreciate taking the time out of your day. We hope this was a helpful discussion, and we look forward to seeing you on more webinars. Happy holidays.